Welcome to the deep dive. Ready to get deep?
Always.
Today we're diving into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
Oh, a classic.
We're working with the full YouTube audiobook, so...
Lots to unpack there.
It is. It's packed with ideas about how our minds, kind of keep us from experiencing real peace.
Absolutely. It's a dense book, for sure, but that's where we come in, right?
Exactly.
We'll help you extract those core concepts and see how they apply to your life, even if you're not, trying to reach enlightenment or anything.
Right. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
Have you ever felt like you're just missing out on life because your mind is, stuck worrying about something,
All the time.
regretting something, or just planning for the future?
Yeah.
That's what Tolle calls ordinary unconsciousness.
Yeah, he describes it as like this low-level unease.
Yeah.
Just humming in the background of our lives.
Constantly.
Like, someone's so busy planning their weekend trip that they don't even notice the beautiful sunset on their way home from work.
Oh, that's such a perfect example. Yeah.
It's like we're just on autopilot,
Totally.
missing the beauty of, right now because our minds are somewhere else. And Tolle suggests that this ordinary unconsciousness is actually like the root of a lot of our suffering.
That's his big point, yeah.
He uses a pretty powerful analogy to illustrate it, too. Imagine a chief of police trying to find an arsonist, desperately searching, only to discover that the arsonist is, wait for it, the chief of police himself.
Whoa.
Right.
That's deep.
So is he saying that we create our own suffering?
In a lot of ways, yeah.
By searching for peace and happiness outside of ourselves, when the source of our discontent is actually like our own thinking?
Precisely.
Wow.
Tolle argues that our minds, they're incredibly useful tools,
Oh, for sure.
but they can also be the source of our greatest pain.
It's true.
It's like our brains have become masters at creating these elaborate stories about the past and the future,
Yeah.
keeping us from fully experiencing the only reality that truly exists, the now. Okay, so if our minds are the problem, is the solution just to, stop thinking altogether?
Well, not exactly. It's more about becoming aware of our thoughts
Okay.
without getting swept away by them.
So observe them.
Yeah, exactly. Tolle invites us to, step back
Mm.
and become observers of our minds, like just watching clouds drift by in the sky.
Okay, I like that. So it's about creating some space between ourselves and our thoughts,
Exactly.
rather than being completely consumed by them.
Yes.
Okay.
He calls this cultivating presence.
Presence.
Yeah, and it's like at the heart of his teachings, and he suggests that one of the biggest obstacles to presence is what he calls the pain body.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Tell me more about this pain body.
All right, so imagine this. You're going about your day feeling pretty content,
Okay.
and then someone makes a comment, seemingly harmless, but suddenly you're hit with this wave of, anger
Oh, yeah.
or sadness,
Um,
and it feels totally out of proportion to the situation.
I know that feeling. Right.
It's like some hidden button gets pushed, and suddenly I'm flooded with all these emotions from the past.
Exactly. Tolle describes the pain body as an accumulation of all this past emotional pain that lives within us.
Mm.
It's like this shadow self
Oh, wow.
that feeds on negativity.
A shadow self.
Yeah, and it can be triggered by our thoughts, and experiences.
So even when we're trying to be positive and present, this pain body can, sabotage our efforts?
It can definitely feel that way. Tolle uses this analogy of a spinning wheel to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Even when we stop pushing the wheel, it takes time for that momentum to slow down,
Right.
eventually come to a stop.
It doesn't just stop immediately.
No.
That's a powerful image. It makes me realize that, breaking free from these negative patterns takes patience and persistence. But if our minds are so good at trapping us in this cycle of suffering, how do we escape? Is there even a way out? Well, that's where the power of now comes in. Tolle suggests that the key to liberation lies in, fully embracing the present moment. Okay. Without dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
So it's about shifting our focus from that mental chatter that constantly pulls us away from the now.
Exactly. Tolle points out that in life or death situations, people naturally shift into a state of intense presence.
Right.
Think about, someone facing sudden danger. Their mind becomes completely focused on the immediate threat.
Yeah, it's like all their mental energy is channeled into dealing with that situation at hand.
Right.
No room for thoughts about the past or future.
And it's in that state of heightened awareness, free from the usual mental noise, that we tap into our true power and potential.
Makes me think about like why some people are drawn to those extreme activities like mountain climbing or skydiving. It forces them into the now.
Yeah, like a shortcut to experiencing the raw intensity of life.
Hmm.
But Tolle argues that we don't need to put ourselves in, like, dangerous situations to access this power.
So how do we cultivate this sense of presence in our everyday lives?
Well, we'll delve into that next.
Yeah.
But for now, just remember that the power to break free from these mental prisons, it lies within each of us. We just need to learn how to access it. We can actually cultivate presence in our everyday lives through things like meditation and mindfulness.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and these practices, they aren't about like emptying your mind completely. It's more about like training your attention to stay anchored in the present moment.
So it's like building a mental muscle,
Yeah.
like the ability to just gently guide our attention back to the now whenever we find ourselves, drifting into thoughts about the past or future.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
And as we practice this, we start to kind of dismantle the grip of what Tolle calls the ego.
The ego. Yeah.
Yeah, and he defines it as like this false sense of self that's constantly seeking, fulfillment in external things or like future achievements.
Like that voice in our heads that's like, you're not good enough,
No.
not successful enough, not thin enough.
Exactly. It's always comparing us to others, worrying about what people think, and
Mm.
keeping us trapped in like these cycles of desire and dissatisfaction. And Tolle suggests that this ego is actually what prevents us from experiencing true joy and contentment.
So how do we quiet this ego? I mean, how do we connect with our true selves?
Well, one of the most powerful tools Tolle offers is the practice of connecting with our inner body.
Wait, inner body. I'm not sure I get that. Is this like a metaphorical thing, or are we talking about like actual physical sensations?
It's both. It's about becoming aware of the subtle energy field that kind of permeates our physical body. Tolle describes it as like a doorway to a deeper realm of being, a
Mhm.
place of stillness and presence that's always available to us, no matter what's happening, in our external world.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but how do we actually like connect with this inner body? It sounds a little abstract.
Well, Tolle provides this guided visualization in the audiobook.
Oh, okay.
He suggests finding a comfortable position, closing your eyes, and just bringing your attention to your breath.
Mhm.
And as you breathe, you just imagine feeling a subtle energy or like a tingling sensation throughout your body.
Okay.
It might be faint at first, but, with practice, it becomes more noticeable.
I can see how focusing on, physical sensations could help anchor us in the present moment. It's
Yeah.
like shifting our attention away from that mental chatter and into like a more grounded experience.
Exactly.
But how does connecting with the inner body actually help us reduce suffering?
Well, Tolle suggests that by becoming aware of this subtle energy field, we tap into like a source of peace and tranquility that's independent of our external circumstances.
Hmm.
It's like finding a place of refuge within ourselves. Yeah. A place where we can always return to find stillness and centeredness, no matter what chaos might be swirling around us.
That's a powerful idea. It makes me realize that true peace, it doesn't come from changing our external circumstances, but rather from cultivating this deep sense of inner peace, that can't be shaken by the ups and downs of life.
Exactly. And this inner peace is essential for creating healthy and fulfilling relationships too.
This brings us to Tolle's views on relationships, right?
Yeah.
He's got some pretty radical ideas about how to create more loving and conscious connections.
Oh, he does. Tolle believes that most relationships are dysfunctional because they're based on what he calls like mind-based interactions.
Mind base.
Yeah, rather than true communion between beings.
So instead of connecting from a place of like genuine presence and acceptance, we often get caught up in our own projections and expectations about the other person.
Exactly. It's like we're trying to get something from the relationship. Like validation, security,
Yeah.
a sense of completion,
Mhm.
rather than simply being present with the other person, as they are. And this creates a dynamic of neediness and dependency that ultimately leads to, more suffering.
So how do we escape this trap and create more fulfilling relationships?
Well, Tolle suggests that the key is to cultivate a deep connection with our own being first. It's that old adage, you can't love someone else until you love yourself.
Right. But it's more than just, loving yourself.
Yeah.
It's about knowing yourself, accepting yourself, and finding a sense of wholeness and completeness within yourself.
Right. It's about recognizing that we're already whole and complete. We don't need another person to like fix us or make us happy. And once we've established this connection with ourselves, then we can learn to see beyond the form of others,
Mm.
their physical appearance, personality, even their thoughts and emotions, and connect with the essence within.
It's about seeing that spark of divinity in every human being, regardless of their, flaws or imperfections.
Exactly. And that leads to one of Tolle's most radical ideas about relationships: complete acceptance of your partner without needing to change them.
Whoa, that's a challenging concept. Does that mean we just have to tolerate bad behavior
Or
or accept being treated poorly?
not at all. It's about like letting go of judgments and expectations
Yeah.
and allowing the other person to be who they truly are, even if it's different from what we might prefer.
Mhm.
You know, it's about creating a space where both people feel safe to be their authentic selves
Mm.
without fear of judgment or rejection.
I can see how that would create a much deeper and more authentic connection. But letting go of our need to control or change the people we love, that's a tall order.
It
How do
is.
we even begin to cultivate that kind of acceptance?
Well, it starts with a willingness to surrender,
Mm.
and that's a concept we'll unpack in our next segment.
Surrender. It's a word that, it often carries these connotations of defeat or giving up. But in the context of Tolle's teachings, it takes on a whole new meaning.
Definitely. Tolle doesn't see surrender as weakness at all. For him, it's about this deep inner acceptance of what is,
Mhm.
letting go of the struggle, the resistance that creates so much of our suffering.
So it's more about aligning ourselves with the flow of life rather than, constantly trying to swim upstream against the current.
Exactly. Tolle uses this great analogy to illustrate this point. He talks about this butcher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has this customer who's like, give me the best cut of meat. And the butcher just replies, every piece of meat I have is the best. There is no piece of meat here that is not the best.
It's a simple story, but it really says a lot about the power of acceptance.
Right.
The butcher isn't denying that there might be, differences in cuts of meat, but he's choosing to see the inherent goodness in every single one.
And that's exactly what Tolle is inviting us to do
Yeah.
in our own lives.
Okay.
Stop labeling things as good or bad
Yeah.
and just accept them as they are. Because, when we resist what is, we just create more tension and suffering.
It makes me think of that serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Beautiful. That's a great connection. And Tolle would probably agree that surrender is ultimately about, aligning our will with the higher power, a wisdom that goes beyond our limited human understanding.
So it's not about giving up our personal power, but rather tapping into a greater source of power that flows through us when we let go of our ego's need to, control everything.
Precisely. And when we truly surrender, we open ourselves up to the possibility of transformation,
Oh.
both within ourselves and in our circumstances.
It's like we're saying to the universe, okay, I trust you. I'm letting go of my limited perspective and opening myself up to a greater plan.
And in that act of surrender, we often find that solutions and opportunities just emerge that we never could have imagined before. Doors open, synchronicities happen, and we're kind of guided towards a path that aligns with our soul's purpose.
So surrendering, it isn't about becoming passive or inactive. It's actually a very active choice, a courageous choice to trust in something greater than ourselves.
Absolutely. And Tolle suggests that this trust is what allows us to move through life with a sense of grace and ease, even when we're faced with, challenges.
Because we know that even in the midst of difficulty, there's a higher power guiding us, supporting us.
And speaking of challenges, Tolle has a lot to say about how we can actually use those difficult situations as opportunities for growth and awakening.
He does. He believes that challenges, these setbacks, they're actually essential for our spiritual development. He even suggests that what we perceive as negative experiences, those can be the greatest catalysts for awakening. So it's not about avoiding pain or trying to create this perfect life, but rather learning to navigate those inevitable ups and downs with awareness and presence.
Exactly. Tolle reminds us that suffering is just a part of the human experience.
It is.
But he also emphasizes that we have a choice in how we relate to that suffering.
We can either allow it to consume us, right?
Right.
And drag us down into deeper levels of unconsciousness.
Or we can use it as fuel for transformation.
Yeah.
We can meet our challenges, with courage and honesty, allowing them to break us open and reveal our true strength, our resilience.
Like that intense heat and pressure that transforms a lump of coal into a diamond.
That's a beautiful metaphor. And ultimately, that's what Tolle's teachings are all about, this potential for human transformation. He believes that through individual and collective awakening, we can create a world that reflects the peace, the love, the interconnectedness that resides at the core of our being.
It's a powerful vision, and it offers this glimmer of hope in a world that often feels consumed by darkness and division.
It does. And while Tolle acknowledges the pain and suffering that exists in the world, he doesn't shy away from that possibility of a brighter future.
He even connects his vision to ideas from other, spiritual traditions.
Yes. He points to the Buddhist concept of, every tree and blade of grass becoming enlightened, kind of symbolizing the awakening of consciousness in all of creation.
And he draws parallels to the Christian concept of like a new heaven and a new earth, where suffering is no longer the norm, but a relic of the past.
Yeah. Tolle believes that this transformation is possible, and not through, political solutions or technological advancements, but through a fundamental shift in human consciousness.
The shift from fear to love, from separation to unity, from that ego-driven striving to a deep sense of inner peace and fulfillment.
And he suggests that this shift is already happening, that more and more people are awakening to the power of now and choosing to live more consciously, more compassionately.
It's a beautiful message and a very inspiring one, but I think one of the biggest questions people have is, okay, this all sounds great in theory, but how do I actually apply these teachings to my own life?
That's a great question. And while Tolle offers so much wisdom and practical advice in his book, I think the most important takeaway is that the journey begins with that simple act of becoming present.
Of choosing moment by moment to shift our attention away from that mental chatter and into the richness of the present experience.
Yeah, it might sound simple, but it's a profound practice that can really transform our lives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the power of now, I want to leave you with a question to think about. If you truly believed in the power of now, how would your life be different?
What would you stop doing?
Right.
What would you start doing? What new possibilities would open up for you if you fully embrace this present moment?
Those are questions worth pondering as you continue your own exploration of Tolle's work. Thanks for joining us on the Depth Dive. We'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration of your chosen topic.